Welcome back to another video on the GT500. Today we are installing an ice tank. So this is my 2007 GT500 and we're going to be installing an in-trunk 7.5 gallon ice tank, which is right here. I'm going to go over the parts, components, and everything I've picked out in a minute. Let me show you the old setup. So the old setup in here is pretty basic. You guys have seen me drag race with this for a couple years now. And I say a couple years like I've done a lot of drag racing. I really haven't in all reality, but it is what it is. Anyway, this is what we got going on. So regular stock heat exchanger, stock lines, stock 3/4 inch lines. This is pretty much the only aftermarket part in the system besides the heat exchanger, intercooler, heat exchanger, big difference. So we have the AFCO dual fan heat exchanger, which we're probably gonna pull the bumper off a little later, so you'll get to see that a little bit better. Still running the stock intercooler pump, and we have a 1.5 gallon ice tank in the engine bay right here. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So the reason we're changing this out is, for one, the stock pump kind of sucks. So we could change that and get better flow, but then you got to do a bypass, some other stuff. And realistically, I need an ice tank, and here's why. At the drag strip, pretty much what happens, I'll ice that tank down, and by the time I get all the way up through the staging lanes up into ready to actually make my run, ice is gone. So we can start our run off. The best I did was I was able to get temps down to 116 by literally driving straight to the front of the line. Did our pass, and by fourth gear, what I'm suspecting is happening is as the water's coming out, it's heating up, right? So we're basically using up all of our cold water, and the heat exchanger and pump cannot keep that cold under wide open throttle conditions. So there are a couple remedies for that. You can do bigger heat exchanger lines, 1-inch lines, bigger intercooler lines, what I meant to say, and you can upgrade those all the way up to a full 1-inch system. Thought about it, and the reason I'm not convinced that flow is necessarily my problem. I'm more convinced that it's capacity. And if you're doing road course, half mile, full mile, whatever, and you really want to get like the ultimate heat exchanger system, 1-inch lines, all the flow, all the heat exchanger, and you'll probably be okay. However, in my use case, I'm not sitting there driving the whole time. The car is on and off, on and off, on and off, does a pass. So I don't really use the heat exchanger for what it's meant for besides the occasional road driving. So I need capacity for a lot of cold water, and to make sure I don't start recirculating hot water throughout a pass. I need that water to stay cold the entire pass. Hence, 7.5 gallon tank. So here's the quick overview of the parts I got. So preliminary parts list. This is subject to, I already know I need more stuff, but Amazon heater hose. I think this is just Gates. It's like 50 bucks for 50 feet. So not bad. We're sticking with 3/4 inch lines, like I said. I found the ice tank. I believe this is a TIG Vision ice tank. I don't see any branding on it anywhere. But I found a marketplace for about 400 bucks, and the tank itself is usually 300. The tank or the pump another 200-300 bucks. And yeah, so this one's a little interesting. It's probably meant for an auto swap because it's got a transmission cooler in there, which I don't have any need for, but it's still hollow in the center of that, so capacity wise it's not going to hurt much. AN 12 or 12 AN fittings right here, so picked up 2 of these guys off Amazon. Easy day. And the wiring schematic I'm going to go ahead and put in the video somewhere when the time comes. Actually, here's what the wiring is going to look like. Feel free to pause it. So as you can see, we got our relay right here, and the whole point of this, you can see how thick these wires are. So the rule to 3700 is the pump that's in here. You can see it's a little dirty, probably ran some coolant through it, no biggie. So it's a 3700. It's got a 1.5 inch discharge, and it gets neck down pretty much instantly to 3/4, which is not ideal. I wish I had the 1-inch fittings, but I don't. Down the road, we'll probably upgrade, but for right now, I don't really care that much. I think this will be more than enough for what I need at 700 horsepower. Wiring wise, I went ahead and checked. So they want 14 gauge wire is good for 20 feet for this pump. So that's more than enough. So we got 2 packs of 14 gauge right here, or 1 pack, I guess, black and red. My plan for grounding, I'm going to ground everything pretty much to the body, and then power is going to be run all over the car. Went ahead and got some heat shielding. This is for, not heat shielding, but wire shielding. So that'll kind of dress up our kit a little bit better. Got our relay, and my plan is to use the stock pump as the relay trigger, and that'll basically make sure that whenever the factory would turn that pump on, it's on. And then I'm going to have an interrupt switch with this on that line, and that's pretty much going to let me turn it off. If I want to turn off the pump, so the fans may be on and everything, but I want the pump off, this way we're in the staging lanes, we're not constantly pumping hot water through here. I can turn it off till we get to the till we get the actual ready to make our run. And then if I turn it back on, it'll run as factory intended, which is pretty much all the time. So nothing too, pretty straightforward in my opinion. Fused right here for our actual set for the main power wires. This way we don't have any problems in case something blows for whatever reason. And yeah, that's literally it. I do need to get a drain. This is a 1/2 inch. I need to get a 1/2 inch thing. The picture had a dude selling, he left his drain in there, so I thought it was coming with one. It didn't, no big deal. So I'll just pick one up real quick, and that's pretty much it. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. So on the car side, sorry it's a little dark. I'll go ahead and get some better lighting in here in a minute before we actually install everything. The only thing I gotta move is my booster pump right here needs to come back. For whatever reason, they put it up there, and the tank sits like right here. So we're gonna undo that, put 2 new fresh holes into the car, which is my favorite thing to do, and move that back, and yeah. So I think I'm gonna go ahead and run out and get some hardware first before we really start. I need to get 2, 4, 6 bolts, lock washers, etc. And then a on-off switch right here, and a little bit of 1/2 inch line, which actually I have plenty of lines, so we don't need an extra line, but we do need a little switch that's threaded to be able to turn this on and off to be able to drain it. And I think we'll be ready to start the install. Went ahead and picked up some additional hardware. I just wanted to show you guys. So first up, I did mess with the relay a little bit. So looking at the directions, this is the diagram for this one. So wire is gonna go to our trigger. That's gonna go to our stock pump wire. This is ground for what I assume is just the trigger. It's a very small ground, it's not for the actual equipment. So this is also gonna go to the stock pump ground. So that should be good there. Then we got a blue wire. This is going to my rule pump. So we're gonna run a single wire from here all the way to the pump, and then this side's gonna get grounded. I was trying to test it out. It did turn on. Don't worry about those cables, these are coming off. It's gonna get grounded straight to the chassis inside the car. And then this wire goes to our fused relay, or fused guy right here, and that's gonna go straight to the battery. So I have a little battery section on the fuse box. I'll show you when we get to it, and that's pretty much how that's gonna run. I am gonna have a better diagram. This is preliminary what I'm running off of real quick. So if you guys do wanna see, battery, fused relay to relay, or fused to relay, ground, trigger, cabin switch, OG pump power right there, and then 14 gauge all the way back to the rule pump. So easy day there. I found this little hardware kit that I picked up for something else. Can't remember what it was, but I'm just gonna repurpose it for this. And then I got some bigger washers to go over top of these so that we have plenty of surface area pinning this tank down without any issues there. Got some lock washers, and we're gonna use some thread locker on these. And then for this, so this is what I'm running for hardware. So trying to find the right fitting. I really just wanted to find a thread-in fitting, but I couldn't find one that also had like a good diameter opening, because a lot of them neck down to super tiny and it would take forever to drain this thing. This is 1/2 inch, so I got a little double-sided guy right here. So that threads into the tank. This is gonna thread onto that, and then this is gonna thread onto here, and then we'll just have our pipe. This is a little bit bigger. This 3/4 pipe that we bought, and this is a slightly smaller 5/8, but it's tight enough we can just hose clamp it down. It's not gonna be a problem. It's only a drain, there's no pressure, so no big deal there. But that's pretty much the hardware. I got some heat shrink and a couple other things. So where I wanna start this project, I'm gonna go ahead and start the car up. I like cammed sounds. You might like cammed GT500 sounds as well. So I'm gonna leave you guys rolling for that real quick. I'm gonna pull it out, get it lined up where I want it. And I wanna start with mounting the actual tank. It's the least invasive process minus drilling some holes, and then we'll kind of get it up on jack stands and go from there. So without further ado, let's have at it. that sound never gets old. So car's up. I'm gonna go ahead and get the front up a little bit later, but for right now, let's go ahead and work on the back area and let's get her done. All right, so we're starting this off. First thing, I gotta move my booster pump out of here. So we're gonna unbolt this, get it out of the way, set the ice tank in, and then kind of see where things proceed from there. Well, that hurt my soul. That's the first time I've had to cut anything on this car. I know we're gonna have to put more holes in it for the lines and everything, but I don't enjoy that. Anyway, so I guess this is why you go with the 5 gallon tank as opposed to the 7.5. I'm assuming the 5 gallon is shallow enough you don't need to trim anything there. But it's in. I weighed my options quite a bit, and I was like, you know what? This thing is not going to be coming out under my ownership anyway. So it's time to go. It's not like it did anything anyway. It held in, not even a spare tire. It was just a very, very much expired repair kit. So I had to take out some of the sound deadening in here to get it to fit in the edges. And that's how tight the clearance is, but it's good to go. So on to the next step. I'm gonna go ahead and mark out where I want these holes. Honestly, I might just drill where the holes are now. I need to check underneath to make sure there's nothing in the way. And we'll go ahead and continue mounting this. All right, so you got the two in here, and this is my quick little makeshift setup, Allen key, and then a wrench just to keep it from moving. And I didn't do the two back ones yet because I went through the first layer of material and hit something pretty hard, so I want to make sure I'm not like about to drill into something. So let's check under there and see what's actually underneath that. All right, so it looks like, I don't know if you guys can tell, it looks like there's a seam weld right there, and that's what we bumped into. So not the end of the world. I'm gonna go ahead and drill through it. Just be careful not to anchor lines that are underneath it. But that's why we always check. Due to location, I'm gonna get these last two off camera, and then the tank will at least be mounted in place, and then we'll kind of continue on from there. Just so you guys are aware of this, sound deadening isn't factory. The previous owner put it in here. It does add some weight. I don't really care that much, so I'm gonna leave it, but we might take it out down the road. Just a heads up, you probably won't have this. All right, so underneath the car, I just want to show you where these bolts do come out at. So looking at just above the diff, very tight, but there's one right there, and the other one comes out on this side right there. So that's where they show up at on the other side here. All right, so trunk tank is at least securely mounted in place. We got a whole bunch more work to do on this, but for right now it's getting pretty late. I'm gonna call it quits. Just eyeballing right here before we get going for the evening. I think we'll wind up mounting the two boost pumps, either put them back in the trunk area over here or completely out of the way, like up there somewhere. Have not really decided yet. Kind of liking up there, to be honest, but we shall see. I just want to keep them away from the water lines when that time comes. But yeah, so let's go ahead and I guess call it for now, and see you guys in the morning. All right, so it's the next day. Let's continue on the trunk install. The next part I want to go ahead and do is throw on the drain real quick, just because I think it's going to be pretty easy. So let me show you what I'm going to do with that. All right, so next bit, we got our drain. So we got to get this guy. I'm gonna put some, I think it's I can't remember, PFE tape or something like that. Put that on here, and then we're gonna get it plugged in. And my plan is pretty much just to run the drain. There's a little plug right here. You can see it on this side. Let's see if we can get a better light. See the plug on this side for the wiring. So there's another one right here. So I'm gonna cut out this little bit of sound deadening, and we're just gonna run our drain straight out that plug. The least amount of cuts I can make the possible, or the least amount of cuts I need to make, the better. So let's go ahead and do that real quick. All right, so it looks like we got our, so we got the drain mounted up pretty easy. So that's nice. I like the little factory hole right there, which works out perfectly. So I'm gonna go ahead and look at routing of how I wanna do these lines. They got two factory bungs right here. I need to see what's underneath there. I'm pretty sure it's the evap tank, but we'll see what else might be around that area. So I'm either gonna try and use those two for the feed and return, or we're gonna have to put new holes in it. And I'm trying to do my best to avoid putting holes and stuff, but we shall find out. All right, so I went ahead and just spent some time looking under the car trying to figure out the best way to run these lines. And I'll show you underneath when I actually get them run, but for right now, there's a fuel line that runs from around this area, and it kind of dips up that way, around, and up to the front. I think it's an evap line. But that is a very solid mounting point for right now, and I'm gonna go ahead and utilize that. So the way I'm gonna run my lines, I'm gonna have them both coming out to the driver's side, and then the reason is there's a bunch of paneling on this side to help hide them. So it's gonna come out, I'm gonna try and have them come out right around here, and then it's gonna loop around this way, and these two bolts are gonna double as my tie-up points to keep the lines up away from the exhaust muffler, which is right there. And I'll kind of show you as we keep going. I'm gonna mess around with some zip ties, and I have an idea on how to do this. So pretty much where I'm at right now, and time to go ahead and get routing. So the first thing I gotta do, I'm gonna put two sweet holes into this thing. I'm gonna cut my line. I'm gonna cut this line in half so I can run them both at the same time. And then I'm also gonna drag the power wire with me so I can run all three of these things all going up to the front at the same time. Well, the battery down on me midway through this drill, so in the meantime, while it's charging, I'm gonna go ahead and remount up my fuel pump boosters, and I figured out where I wanna put them. Just mount them right here, so I'm gonna do that real quick while we're waiting for the battery to charge. All right, so went ahead and got our wiring ran as far as just exiting the car, just hanging out right here. Just picked up some 1/2-inch wire loom, and it seems to be the right size for everything, so I can carry 1 and 2 wires depending what I need. So I went ahead and on the bottom side of this bolt, I went ahead and ground the paint off to make sure it's got a metal-to-metal contact. Took it out, put it back in, so that's nice and tight now. And that's gonna be our ground source. and then positive, just borrowing this little trunk grommet right here and running through, I think it goes to the tail lights. And basically my plan is to follow it and have it follow one of these lines all the way to the front. So I'm gonna go jack up the car, and my plan is to go ahead and run these things, and then I'm gonna show you guys after I run them, how I ran them, so you can kind of see what I did. I think that'll be the best way so you guys can have an idea, because trying to time lapse it is just a pain in the butt trying to reroute these things. So you got quite a bit of line to run, and once we get it in, I'll show you guys what we did. So we got the back half of the car run, and I'm gonna do this in one take so you can kind of get an orientation of where everything is. And long story short, it sucks. There's no easy way to do this that I'm finding, and there's no really perfect line routing. So it is what it is. Honestly, you would almost be better off just skipping the whole hump of the axle and running it in the car, like underneath the seats. But then you got the fuel tank in the way, so I don't really know what the best way to do this is. So I'm doing it this way. Anyway, so we got two 90s right here. Sorry, it's kind of dark. So we got our two 90s right here. These are TAC 12 AN. So two AN fittings right to a push fit, and then I'm reusing some old lock clamps I have, and these seem to be working fine. I'm not gonna worry about it. Pretty low pressure system for the most part. Anyway, so it's gonna run out the car underneath. Let me grab my light. So underneath they come out right here. And originally I was gonna try and do it with that 90s right there. However, they were starting to kink over, especially this guy. And then our wiring harness is coming out right through here, or wire, I guess, and it's running along the line. So it runs this way, and then you can kind of see it running around that way. And it's just resting on the exhaust hanger. There's nothing really pinning it besides these 90s. As we come under here, see we got a pretty good amount of clearance there. And then this is where it gets fun. So trying to get over this stupid exhaust hump, or axle hump rather, has not been fun. So we have these, I think they're just fuel, this is the, I want to say the charcoal canister or whatever, and something to do with that. So these I'm running up to here. I have them zip tied to each other, and then a zip tie here, another one on the other side up there. And sorry, it's very tight under here. I'm trying to get you guys a decent angle so you can kind of see what's going on. Let's see. Yeah, so you can see them over there. This is where it gets even more fun. I am not a fan of this setup at all, but I don't really have another choice. It gets real tight right in here. And let me see if I can get a better angle. Yeah, so you can kind of see the lines right there. So there's a good, I'd say a good finger width in between the exhaust pipe and the lines running back that way. There's a couple of brackets that the GT500 seems to have that don't really go to anything that I have zip tied back in here. So that's what's holding them that way. And one has a hole in it, one's just a flat tab, but it seems to have worked. And then from here, we're just gonna run these lines around and up that way. So let me keep going, but I just kind of wanted to give you a little update where I'm at. It's very difficult to run these things without kinking the heater hose, and that would obviously inhibit flow dramatically. So that's kind of what I'm fighting in terms of trying to keep this thing running smoothly. This one right here has a, so this zip tie goes to this line right here, and this zip tie up here goes to this line further up, and the same line, but it kind of helps. I had to take out this wiring harness from here and move it on top of these guys because it was in the way. And yeah, so I'm sure you guys probably, if you've done this before, maybe you did it the same way, maybe you did it different, but I don't really think there's a one size fits all for how to run these lines. If I was doing 1-inch lines though, to be honest, I don't know if it would fit through here. I would have to come up with a different game plan. Like, thought about going around the axle area, but this area is very tight. Going up around the fender wells, very tight. So yeah, I don't know, we'll see. So I guess another way you could have done it, looking at it, if you went through the trunk where the shock mount is, have it come out of there into the 90 and follow it all the way up in that inner tire well, might have been okay, but I felt like that was exposing it to a lot of potential debris, or if the tire gets tucked under for whatever reason, the launch catches it, would not be a good day. Yeah, so I'm gonna keep going and see what happens. All right, so got the car jacked up on this side, and I went ahead and took off this cover. And this is what covers all your fuel rails and everything. They're not rails, sorry, fuel lines. And yeah, basically I want to use this to kind of hide everything and keep everything tidy. So I'm going to run everything up underneath this guy and run it straight up into the fender well. So let's go ahead and continue knocking this out. So some time has elapsed and here we are. I went ahead and got the lines run. As you saw, I told you I was going to follow it through underneath this fuel line cover. I did. I had to clearance this section right here because it was squishing the line too much and kind of kept it going. I have a drive shaft loop in here, safety loop up there, and it blocks off one of these attachment points because there's a lot more weight on here now. I wound up doing a self tapper and threading in another bolt in here. Hold that up properly. And yeah. So it kind of keeps on going all the way through, and it's a little bit bulging here because there's a lot more line there now. It gets very tight. There's not much room between the body and everything else right here, so not really much I can do about it. But looking at it with the cats over there, I mean, it's not really hanging any lower than normal, so it's not that big of a deal to me. I'm going to leave it the way it is, but it just kind of helps clean it up a little bit, and the lines are coming out over here, so let's continue. All right, so on this side, this is where you can see how they're coming out right here. I trimmed this last piece off of here. It was just a little cover that shoots up, so I didn't want that in the way. This is our power cable, so I shot it up, took out the inner fender well, obviously, in the wheel, shot the power cable up through here. This is where my wideband runs and a couple other things, and it comes out right through here. And then I have it running right here for now. It's not the final way it's going to run, but I'm just kind of letting it hang for now. Coming around the front of the car, and it's going to wind up over here somewhere. So my relay is going to wind up over here. There's a 25-foot wire, and this is like the perfect length. So just letting it hang for there. I'm probably going to have it follow the heat exchanger relay, or the heat exchanger harness right here, but we'll get back to that in a little bit. Now, pretty much we're at the point where I need to be able to run the line. So I marked one of my lines. This blue one is my feed, and this line I want to run directly into the feed of the supercharger here. So my plan is to have it basically come off of this guy. Kind of already like how this is shaped and pushing it away. Just a little connector, and then maybe we can zip tie it to the radiator fan and have it going that way. And on this side, this line is going to stay stock. It's going to run all the way to the heat exchanger, and then the return comes out right over here. You can tell there's the hose clamp right there. That's the return line off of the heat exchanger that goes to the pump. So we got to get the pump out of here, this tank, and a couple of extra lines, and I'm going to put you guys back on time lapse as I start doing this. I'm going to not bother taking off the bumper, just don't really see a point, and it's kind of a lot of extra work for no reason. All right, so I went and paused time lapse because I was struggling with a couple things. Still got to get this pipe off right there. It's the inlet to the intercooler, or the heat exchanger rather, and it's going to become the exit. The way that the system works from the factory is it goes tank, pump, into the heat exchanger, out of the heat exchanger, into the intercooler, back to the tank. I'm not going to run it that way because we have a big quantity of we have a big quantity of fluid. So after looking at Department of Boost and a couple other ways that they run it, the way I'm running it, it's going to be ice tank to the intercooler, from the intercooler down to the heat exchanger using the stock line that's already there, heat exchanger back to the tank. So I went ahead and ran our lines, and as you can see, just went ahead and zip tied these two to these two fuel lines right here. If you ever do a fuel system, which probably is going to happen at some point, I'm gonna have to redo this a little bit, but for right now it's fine. So we run those two there. These are zip tied together, and then there's a sweet little push pin hole right here I'm using for my lines, and then underneath, and you can kind of see where it comes up right here. Just pokes through, no big deal. There's one, And this is the other one right here, just poking through. So I have a little slack in it just in case. I zipped that up to where our old tank went, and I got it set up laying right here. So I'm just gonna cut it, go ahead and slip on a little fancy looking shieldy boy, and that's pretty much that. We're almost done. Well, at least for this part. Still got the drain hooked up, wiring, and some other stuff, so we're not really almost done. All right, so that pretty much concludes running the water lines, and now it's time. I just finished cleaning up a little bit because it was getting a little out of hand, having a hard time keeping track of everything. But let's go ahead and continue on things. So let's go over wiring real quick. As you saw in the diagram, pretty much you know I'm gonna run it. I'm gonna go ahead and show you what I'm gonna use material-wise. So this is the clip to the stock pump. You can see that the heat exchanger fans, which is this orange wire, is the trigger wire, is already tied into the pump. So the pump's no longer going to work if it's not grounded, so we need to use the ground and we need to use the trigger wire. I'm going to run both of these to the relay, and that's pretty much, you'll see, well, let's see it right now. This is the battery, this is the main battery power for the relay. So they want 14 gauge wire, that's what this side is. The relay itself is a little bit thicker, but it doesn't matter. As long as you're not going thick to thin, it's thin to thick, it'll be fine, it's not going to hurt anything. So I got a 15 amp fuse in here, so a fused relay, which is what this system is now. And then from there, this wire is going to run to our actual, this is going to run to the pump. That's going to hook to a red wire that we ran earlier. This black wire is going to be a ground, and these are our trigger wires. This is ground and trigger. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to interrupt this trigger with this switch right here. This is going to go inside the center console somewhere. And the idea is this has a light on it, which is why there's three. So these two, I believe, are the actual trigger. These are the power wires, and this is just a ground, so this thing actually does light up if you want it to, which I do. It'll make life easier. There you go. 15 amp, 12 volt, DC. I gotta look in to make sure I know the switch works before we wire that in. But anyway, so as I was saying, this is gonna run to our trigger box, and this is gonna go to the actual pump. So pretty simple. The trigger is the one that's gonna get interrupted with the switch. Once I make sure that is what I think it is, and that's going to run, and pretty much this way if I turn it off, relay won't come on, pump will come on if I'm in the staging lanes. Turn it on, operates just as factory would intend, minus all the stuff we just did. So over at the car, pretty much my plan of attack is the fuse box right here, and as you can see, negative disconnected, so we don't get any craziness going on. I disconnected that way before we started this. Anyway, I'm going to run this guy. So this is the power wire that comes straight off the battery. This powers basically the whole block. You can see there's a couple other things already on here, the heat exchanger fans, and I guess that's the only two things. Everything else looks factory as far as I can tell. Anyway, so we're gonna go ahead and just tie into there for power, and then I'm gonna stick the relay on the front right here, and it's gonna hang out right there off of that bolt, and that'll kind of be down and out of the way. Honestly, I'm kind of running out of room. I was almost thought about getting a whole, like, replacing this box with like something bigger and just having an actual secondary customizable relay setup, but it is what it is. So, well, actually, before we continue, like, see how there's nothing in there? I was thinking technically you could probably just add the relay in there, but that's a little bit too advanced for what I'm doing, so we're not gonna do that right now. But yeah, so I'm gonna go ahead and start wiring this stuff up, and then I'll kind of show you what I come up with at the end, because this stuff's pain in the butt and I don't like filming while I'm doing it. It's just difficult to make everything work. All right, so you got the first wire in. That was the red one I was just showing you. So now it's in the battery box, tied to the battery basically, and it runs around down here. Next one I'm gonna run is this blue one to the main guy over here. In theory, we could always trip it and make sure the pump works, but I don't wanna fill it with water just yet, so we're not gonna do that. But I pretty much ran the cable, as you saw, up through the car, around through here, coming along, and just kind of running it through here. And the reason I did it this route instead of following the cables exactly is because I'm going to reuse this for also my trigger wire that's going to go into the cabin. It follows the same route, so you guys are aware. Comes down, follows along here because I want it to tie into this guy and up to here. So pretty straightforward, and keep working. All right, so just finished up the wiring. I'm going to go ahead and show you what I did, and you guys should hopefully be able to follow along. So our relay is down there. I pretty much did what I was going to say I did a minute ago. So our blue power wire is running power, and that is a red cable that's running all the way back to the tank. And then off of our trigger wire here, I went ahead and wrapped everything up. Pretty much takes trigger, runs down to the switch, and then when the switch gets flipped, it turns it off. Otherwise it runs normal, loops back, runs up to our trigger up here. And let me show you what the center console switch looks like. I haven't turned power back on and tested it yet, but that's where I put my switch right there. So the line lock is the one I've always had, the front one right here, and this is now our other one. So if it's red, it means it's on. If it's, well, off, it's off. Pretty simple. Wiring on the inside, nothing too special right there. And I went ahead and checked. We got plenty of clearance to shift. It's not going to hurt anything, so we are good. And then, yeah, as you saw, it runs around the bottom. Our power wire runs to the tank back here, and then it's grounded right there. So pretty much all that's left to do is put the car back together, put her on the ground, go ahead and put all this stuff back, fill it up, and see what happens. Not gonna lie, I'm a little nervous. I don't have the best track record with electrical, but I really think I did a pretty good job this time around. I'm pretty sure I covered all my bases, hooked everything up right, so she should be good to go. I'm gonna go ahead and start putting everything back together. All right, well, seems to be working. I'm still having that weird issue where if I do a cold start after the battery's been disconnected, the idle is weird. So I turn it off and on a couple times and reset the keyboard memory, and now it's back to normal. Still a really weird issue, but other than that, relay and everything's working fine. Yeah, so let's check out the tank real quick. See the lights on? That's actually brighter than I thought it was gonna be, so might turn that off at some point, but whatever. See our tank, pumping fluid. Definitely got some movement in there. You're shooting that around. And then turn it off. And it's not moving anymore. There we have it. Turn this stuff back on again. The lights flicker just a hair. But there we go. Holy cow, my eyes are killing me. This thing is smogging out the dang garage. But holy cow, definitely a process. I'm gonna get some heat shielding for that exhaust a little bit here and throw that on just so we don't melt that pipe that's real close to it under there. Other than that, doing pretty good. Looks like we got flow, but you can see it getting returned, so let's hope this keeps our IATs in check, right? I don't see any leaks or anything. Yeah, pretty solid. Alrighty guys, as you just saw, I mean, it's working. I was a little bit ballsy to put this thing together on the first try without testing it and actually see if everything worked, but it did. We got very lucky, or maybe I'm getting better at this, but I'm gonna go with luck. And other than that, I mean, pretty much it. All we got to do now is test it. Woke up this morning and I saw the temperature is gonna be 66, 67, and it is a rare opportunity that we get to test the car in such great conditions during the summer here. So we're gonna go ahead and test it out. Basically, we installed the ice tank last. So we just installed the ice tank last video. I don't expect that to make too much of a difference, but we shall see. I do think it'll help with spiking IATs. So at the drag strip, you'll see even if I want to do it with IAT semi under control, fourth gear kind of spikes up, and that's when we get our timing pulled out. So I figured we go ahead and try probably 260 to 130 hits with the ice tank. There's no ice in it, so it's basically just a big tank of water, and kind of see what happens. Without further ado, let's go and get over to Mexico and see what she does. Quick rundown on the setup. We're on the 93 tune with 93 plus octane booster, so we got pretty much the same thing we had the drag strip in the tank, and then we have the drag pack on, so rotating mass, pretty much no excuses. So looking at Draggy DA was like 900 feet, which is not bad at all. It's probably the best I'm going to get until it's like the fall, and it was 71 degrees out, so got a little bit of time until we get there, and we'll see what she does. did. So we did 717 or 771, 60 to 130. So that's where she's at. Missed second right there. That's a shame. Or third, popped out of gear by accident. Whoops. Alright, so that's pretty much the new for testing. The first 60 to 130 hit was a 7.71, which we did pick up some speed. Now that could have been DA, that could have also been the intake air temps, I'm not entirely sure. But like an idiot, I went to log the second run and totally forgot to save the first one, so I didn't get a chance to check out timing on that one. Second one was an 8.7, and that's because my hand slipped off the top of the shifter, so we didn't get third. And I did check the log on that one though, and timing was definitely getting pulled once again, so that was kind of disappointing. Even with the ice tank, it's not being iced down, so the water is pretty warm. And I just went back there to check it when we turned around, and we're looking at IATs that started around, around 109, 110. And we're able to see 18.5 degrees of timing. So we do have all our timing in the tune still, it's just these IATs. Second gear saw 17, or third gear saw 17 degrees, and fourth gear was limited to 16.5. So I'm pretty sure the threshold where it crosses is at 120 degrees intake air temps. Once we get above that, it starts pulling just a little bit in fourth gear. So like I said, we're limited to 16 degrees. Interesting. So I'm gonna go and send the log off to the tuner just to see what he thinks, but I mean, I don't really think there's much you can do about it, so it is what it is. I'm going to talk to him about potentially going to a race gas tune. We'll see. That's one way to do it. And honestly, we won't really know how well the ice tank itself works until we get down to the track. So, I mean, there's just not much we can do about it. But that's pretty much going to do it for this portion of the video. I just kind of wanted to share with you guys my findings and my thoughts. But yeah, right now cruising, we're at 106 IATs, which are not bad. Water's warmed up. We just got a lot of it now, so it takes a little bit longer for it to get saturated. So, not too shabby. Alright, so we just got back from doing a run. I want to test the flow of my ice tank, so I'm not 100% convinced that it's as good as it should be. I'm wondering if maybe I pinched a line or something when I was running it. So I went ahead and unplugged a couple relays and put on a jumper cable. I'm about to flip it on and see what she does. So I'm very curious. Okay, well, that's pretty good. Never mind. I think we are doing pretty much just fine on the flow. Low resistance lines. Yeah. Okay. That answers that question. I'm going to say that's more than enough. Next track day, like I said, is probably at the end of the month. I might get out and do a couple street hits, but it kind of, if you go too far, it's going to heat up the water. Same issue as before. It's not really going to like help, if that makes sense. So on a side note, I don't know what they put in butane, but when it was just sitting here idling, because we still got about 100-ish octane worth of butane in here, and my eyes were watering like crazy. So I don't know what's in it, but it's pretty spicy. Other than that though, that's pretty much going to do it for today's video. Hopefully you guys, hopefully it was helpful. I realized I skipped over some stuff and I kind of moved pretty quick throughout the video. It was just, this is my first time doing this and it was a little interesting. We got to get an exhaust, a heat shield on one that's kind of close to that one pipe. I'm a little bit suspect of it. It shouldn't melt through, but better safe than sorry. So I'm going to wrap that part of the exhaust right there. that should kind of take care of that. Other than that though, I mean, there you have it. Just sounding good as always. I don't know if I want to keep my stock lines or not yet. We'll kind of have to play that one by ear, because like on the one hand, I don't see myself ever getting rid of an ice tank now that it's in here. But on the other hand, for some reason, I may want to go back to the stock setup, so probably gonna hold on to that for a little bit, but we'll see. Other than that though, I mean, there she is. So car, like I said, ran good. My little switch worked as I intended. I will say that LED was brighter than I thought it was gonna be. That is a little bit annoying, because I was hoping it was gonna be kind of dim. But I guess we won't forget if the intercooler's on. If you guys are looking at the rag pass and that light's not on, probably got a problem. But yeah, all in all, did pretty good. So like I said, thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you in the next one with the GT500 or truck, depending on what we got going on. Old girl is just hanging out, being reliable, so it is what it is. See you guys in the next video.